Hey everyone, it's Wendy K Laidlaw here, and as always, I do hope that this message, video, and audio finds you well. Today, I'm talking about breaching castle walls, and what do I mean by that? Well, if you think as your family or your home or your sense of self and sense of stability as your castle, either one of those things, you have this essence that you naturally want it to feel safe. What I found over the years of working, in fact, it's almost 10 years now working with women with endometriosis, as you know, after putting my own into remission, is that invariably they have grown up in a family that has not appreciated their sensitivity and their high degree of connectedness and sensitivity and emotional intelligence, if you like. But B, they have been the one in the family to hear and see and feel everything, where others in the family have not. Now, I always like to start by saying I'm never here to badmouth or beat up or, put upon anyone in anyone's family, because, we're all here by our conditioning and how we've grown up. But if you're a woman with endometriosis and you've tried the produce and the products and the property and everything else and nothing else is working, then you may find that it's the final two P's, the final two poisons that need to be addressed, i.e. people and past. Now, this can be incredibly challenging. Normally what I find is many women find it very easy, and I know I did on my journey, of just addressing the foods and the diet and the products and things, which by itself can be quite challenging. But most importantly, addressing the emotional components, because if you've grown up in a family that has been dismissive or mistreated, mocked, or even, dare I say, abused your sensitivity, as a young child, you would have learned to distance yourself from it, dismiss your feelings and emotions, fear any feelings or emotions that arose, and disassociate almost from your body. Now, I know that sounds like quite a severe and profound thing to do, but as a child, you don't have the knowledge or the wide access to information that perhaps now that you do as an adult. So this is why a lot of my work that I do now, if you're still listening to this podcast after a period of time, or indeed you've worked with me, you know that we address the 5 P's, the 5 poisons, which is produce, products, property, people, and past. And there's a very systematic and structured process through the Endoboss Academy, which is a 12 months program that we address these things. Because again, I know how challenging it can be if you're in a super stressful job or a super stressful relationship, or indeed, the condition has got you to the point where you've had multiple surgeries and you're lying on your sofa every day, or you're bedridden every day, much like I was, gosh, how many years ago now? 10, 11 years ago. So I get that how challenging it can be. So that's why the Academy was created. But ultimately, if you are reading the book, how I ended my endometriosis naturally, which is available on podcast and Kindle and on Amazon, it will give you everything that you need to address all these 5 P's. But what can be the most challenging is, as I say, when your castle walls have been breached. So imagine that you are the castle. You have this sense of, protectiveness. You've maybe put up a few moats. You kind of got your guards up. That actually requires a lot of energy to do that. And that probably started and was created when you were younger, where you didn't have that sense of safety. And I would even ask you now, as you're listening to this or watching this, can you think back a time? And it may be something you want to journal on, or go and sit on grass, or go into nature and just think, when, if ever, did I ever feel safe? And I know for me, that was just, I never had that feeling of safety. I was always on guard. I was always alert. I was always attuned. I was always sensitive, or overly sensitive, as some people would class me, to the people, places, and things around me. And obviously for good reason, as I would continue my journey. And I'm going to be talking more about some new programs that are going to be opening up specifically for those final 2 elements. I know even when I started this, I felt scared to even mention the emotional component, because it took me a long time to recognize that was the final missing piece for me, because I didn't want people to think that it was all in my head. And B, I didn't want women to think that I was saying it was all in their head, because it's not. There's a lot that goes on in the deep subconscious parts of our brain, the early conditioning, way back in even just from survival, the lowest part of the brain, right, that it's connected to the vagus nerve, which goes right down the spine and branches out into the body. If the body perceives threat, doesn't feel safe from the very people that are supposed to make them feel safe, where does that child go to feel safe? Well, A, she probably never feels safe, but she learns to adapt her personality and her being and her body and her brain to the environment that she's in. Now, as I say, I'm never here to bash anyone's family, but sometimes there can be a person or people in a woman's family who don't value her, don't appreciate her, don't lift her up, aren't her biggest cheerleaders. And she feels very alone and isolated, misunderstood, feels different, feels like nobody gets her, feels like she's some alien on this planet Earth. So this is where, when we're thinking about our castle and breaching our castle walls, I encourage you just to, allow yourself some space. And it was very hard in this day and age, but turn your phone off, go and take a pen and paper and go and sit somewhere quietly and just allow for some gentle, just quietness can be very powerful for women with endometriosis. I know if you're in pain, that might feel counterintuitive, but the pain is trying to speak to you. The pain in your body is regarded by some in the emotional, psychological fields as the unconscious, as the subconscious, which when I first heard that, I thought it was a bit of a weird concept, but obviously the more I've gone on my journey, the more work I've done myself, it's so true. Your body is always speaking to you. Our challenge, and I say it is a challenge because it is a challenge, is to learn how to listen to what the body's telling us when we've eaten something, when we've been somewhere, when we've been around somebody, or as we're about to engage with something. Our body's always trying to speak to us, whether it's the tightness in the throat or the tightness in the jaw, or feeling the tightness in the chest, or something in the stomach. I was actually watching something last night and I woke up this morning with a tight jaw. And I thought it was really interesting. So I'm aware that person I find offensive, or maybe offensive is not the right word. I find that person jarring, I think, which is quite, poignant given that my jaws were really tight. So again, this sometimes in the past I've been around someone and I used to get like this knot in the back of my neck, at the top of my shoulder whenever I was around that person. And I used to dismiss all of that as a bit woo-woo and kind of a bit not really my scene. But as you'll learn on the journey, so if you're addressing your diet and you're staying off wheat and really watching your sugar consumption and avoiding soy and things like that, and eating as much green as you possibly can, having your power shakes, and you've swapped out all your products and you're looking at your environment and your property, and you're still not getting the results that you seek, please don't despair. This is where you come back to checking inside your castle walls. Who has breached your sense of safety? Who has breached your sense of identity, your sense of self? Because as you're probably seeing how things are playing out in the USA with all the politics, how many interesting characters are showing up, the lengths and the depths that they're going to try and buffalo themselves and put themselves upon people, trying to control and power over. So again, very interesting to observe. I find myself fascinated by the human beings, that are out there, what makes us who we are. And if you can read as much as you can about these things, then please do. I've got another couple of books coming out shortly about embracing emotions, empathy and energy, and about the who before the why, because I know a lot of people might be in jobs. A lot of women, when they come to work with us, are in jobs that they've outgrown a long time ago, that they're far better placed and experienced in doing far more things that are beneficial to their heart and their soul. So again, take the time to look at these things. Sometimes, I read a statistic the other day that said like 1 in 10 people in our Western world may be classed as sociopath, psychopath, which was quite an interesting thing. So again, if you're a very sensitive person, you're very connected, you're very heartfelt, your light has probably drawn to you, it's not your fault, but has drawn to you some maybe gray or dark people. The gray are the ones that are energy neutral, or and the dark are normally energy draining. So again, your body will tell you quite clearly, and our job is to listen to it and not be frightened by it, but your body will tell you quite clearly who you're around and what you're doing, how that impacts you. Do you feel seen and heard and valued? Do you feel excited and uplifted and enthusiastic and energized when you're around certain people? Probably not, because again, normally what happens as this condition, endometriosis, has shown up in the heart of the South. They call the womb the heart of the South, which I love, because that's probably where you've held everything in, held everything together. And if your nervous system is dialed up, it's affecting your immune system, because ultimately your immune system should be able to go in and clean up any displaced endometrial tissue that's lodged itself in the abdominal cavity and clean and clear that away by itself. If it's not doing that, then it's probably the body's feeling under threat or under great stress, and it's just not able to kind of do the jobs that it's needing to do. So important to start to pay attention. If you know, if you know me, I'm going to be saying you journal in the morning as you wake up. I do that every single day and have done for decades. It has helped me completely transform who I am and how I think and feel to the most positive point in my life that I've ever had. Had I not been journaling, I don't know where I'd be right now. Because what the journaling does is it helps you tap into that information highway to yourself, to your soul, to your spirit, to your instincts, to your intuition. So allow yourself to tune back, just tune in. You might never have journaled before. Someone might have even breached your trust. I know when I was a teenager, my mother had read my journal, and you can imagine how resistant I was to journaling in later years when that was recommended to me. But the key thing is helping you tune into who you are. Just as our fingerprints are unique, you are beautifully unique as well. So by tuning into yourself, by taking time to think, going into nature, really, even if it means putting an alarm on your phone to if you're at work every day, to go and spend the allotted and the allocated lunch hour, it's called a lunch hour for a reason, to go and sit outside as much as you can, get away from your desk, get away from the people that you're at work with, and allow yourself to think. What tends to happen nowadays, everybody's so bombarded from so many different elements and so many different angles that it's very hard for a lot of women to even think. So writing in the morning, just hearing your thoughts and feelings and fears and anxieties. There's a lot of misinformation about, writing and things. As much as I am a great, advocate of being thankful and appreciative of what I have and, showing gratitude, do also allow yourself to tap into your fears and anxieties and to your anger and rage and fury at whatever it is, and try not to judge yourself for it. You're allowed to have these feelings. These feelings ultimately, and these emotions are actually messengers. There is meaning behind the emotions that you have, especially as a woman on this journey. Your body's screaming out to you right now to pay attention to something or someone, or indeed both. And that might be really hard to certain parts of you. Certain parts of you might not be ready to hear and see it, and that's okay. And what I would suggest is writing out what part you might think that is. Invariably, it's a young part, it's a child part. There might even be an adolescence part, like it's a teenage part that feels rebellious, that wants to just burn the whole thing down and blow everything up. And then there's the child part that just feels really scared and anxious and uncertain and insecure. So by even drawing out certain parts as you feel them, it allows for greater clarity. I would even suggest going to an art class, allowing yourself some expression. Again, I dance for me was a really important thing on my journey. Even just going into the bathroom and locking the door and having headphones on and just allowing my body to move to music, separate and away from the prying eyes of who I used to be around. So again, coming back into your body will give you a lot of information. But if you do start to fear and feel anxious about even acknowledging perhaps the partner you're with, or the husband or the partner or the wife or whoever it is that's in your life, or maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a partner or a parent or someone, or even your boss, or whoever it is that's in your life that is causing you anxiety, then please don't worry. It doesn't make you a bad person to acknowledge these things. All we're doing when we look at the final two P's, which is people and past, is that we're looking to just increase our observational awareness. So we're just looking to kind of pull out, if your body, for example, if you start to feel anxiety before you're about to meet someone, don't feel guilty at that anxiety about meeting that person. Just go, that's interesting that I feel this in my stomach, or I feel this in my chest, and just try to just notice. By just noticing, it gives you more information, and it allows other parts of you to really start to feel that you can trust yourself. Because invariably, by the time endometriosis has shown up in your body, you're obviously very detached from your body because it became a very scary and frightening place to live in. But also, you didn't know what to do with the pain or the feelings or the emotions. So you put a lot of energy into distancing yourself from your body. But on this journey ironically, it's an inside job. To heal is an inside job, and to come back into yourself as gently and as slowly as you need to, or as you can, it allows you to increase this awareness. And I always say half the battle is awareness. Once you have the awareness, and again, some people panic when they have the awareness, like, what do I need to do? Like, you don't need to do anything right at this second, but what you need to do is acknowledge what your body's trying to say to you. So there's they talk about listening to your gut and your gut instincts for a reason. So listening to your body in a way that is loving and kind, and not sort of dismissing it or feeling guilt or shame about it, is very important, especially for protecting, yourself. Now, if you feel that for example, your castle walls have been breached, it's probably because somebody has wheedled their way into your life and you don't know how to shift that relationship or put in a boundary. Now, boundaries for me on my journey, it just felt like, obviously I understood the fence boundary, but I had no concept or idea of what an external personal boundary meant or an internal boundary meant. So again, just be really explorative at this particular point. As I say, I've got some more programs that I'm working on right now to really help and try and fast track that, because it took me a long time to trust myself, and not only trust myself, but recognize I was valuable, and I was valued enough by myself to put in these boundaries. Because when you've grown up to be a good girl and a people pleaser and maybe an A-type personality and achiever, it's very challenging to adapt and adjust to these behaviors, because you've always been in a reactive state. What we're looking to do on this journey is just increase our awareness, to just notice, to come into this kind of observational part without shaming or blaming ourselves. Sometimes you might find you just automatically go into a certain way of being and feeling and seeing when you're around certain personality types. And my suspicions are it's when you're around very strong, demanding, complaining, never happy, unpleasant personality types that your personality, goes in to try and please them, to try and understand them, trying to make them happy. And that's what we're not saying that you'll be like them and you'll never be empathetic. You'll stop being empathetic and sensitive, because what we're going to be turning that sensitivity into is your superpower. So that sensitivity comes with really firm boundaries, because you value yourself. Maybe you're at a point where you don't really value yourself. You don't really recognize your value in the world because you've been put upon by the external people around about you. There are a lot of people out there, even in the medical field, in the helping field, even in the therapy field, even in the all sorts of different fields that kind of present themselves as wanting to help, but actually they've got their own agenda, they've got their own ideas about what they want to put upon you, how they want to power over you. And this is really distressing for women, especially when they're in a very vulnerable stage and a very vulnerable point, and they're terrified of I remember at one point thinking, is this my life? Like, is this how I'm going to be for the rest of my life? It was terrifying. And I was desperate for help and desperate for people to kind of tell me what to do. But what I learned was that I had to learn to tune back into myself. And it was challenging because I was terrified of my feelings and emotions for a long, long time, for decades. Now I have a lot of respect for what comes up, and I do my very best every day to make sure that I observe and I keep my awareness high. And then obviously, as I say, there's different stages. It's increasing your awareness about someone. It could be a boss, it could be a partner, it could even be a parent. And then by just noticing, it allows you the opportunity to really question your beliefs of what was set up. So, for example, it might be that, if you discover that a parent is, impatient, unkind, has mistreated you emotionally and been dismissive, underhand, undermining, and you suddenly become aware of that, there might be a sense of loss and a sense of grief to the idea of who you thought they were. And somewhere, somehow, little you thought, if I can just be good enough, if I can just be smart enough and marry Prince William and climb Mount Everest, then they'll love me, they'll notice me. But ironically, it wouldn't matter what you did or who you were. They only see you through their eyes. And because they're so self-absorbed and don't have empathy and compassion like you do, they're never going to see you in the way that you want to be seen. And this is where we have to turn that light back inward to ourselves, to see ourselves, allow the grief and the grieving and the disappointment and the upset of the idea of who we wanted, say, as a partner or as a parent. And then that's when the healing starts to begin. So I wanted to jump on here quickly, just talk about, if you imagine yourself as this castle, who has been breaching your walls, because what can sometimes happen is women become very isolated and alone on this journey because they feel very misunderstood, because they're surrounded by people who don't get them or understand them, or they've got people who've come into their lives that are bullying them and harassing them and pressurizing them and powering over them. So again, if you're listening to this or you read my book, you're a particular type of woman anyway. So you're listening to that inner voice, that inner calling. Keep strengthening that, because that's going to get you through and guide you through. As I say, I've got some more programs coming. We've got some fun things that are going to be coming up. I'm going to be sharing that allows you to feel more connected and tapped in to the community. But wherever you are on your journey, just make sure to never, 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 ever give up. It's tough, it's challenging, but it's here to teach you. It's enabling you to stop, pay attention to where you are, where you're living, what you're eating, who you're around, what your career path is on, and ultimately really sharpening, if not for the first time, putting light on who you are. Now, I know some people feel a bit uncomfortable about, like, who am I? And am I good enough? And am I perfect enough? And am I okay as I am? You're absolutely okay as you are as a woman. What we're doing is, like with the statue of David, is we're chipping away all the stuff that's been put upon you to reveal all that treasure and jewels and gold and that beautiful image of you that's stuck within that stone at the moment. So keep up the great work wherever you are in your journey. Know that you have to make changes, lifestyle changes. They have to be made. They're not easy to be done on their own, but if you are doing it, never, never give up, and know that I'm cheerleading you on, and you've got this. And if you are having successes, please, please do let us know. And if they're something that you've transformed your body on, we'd love to have you on the podcast as well to share and give hope to other women on this journey. But until the next time, to your health.